The emergency order I'm about to sign becomes effective at midnight in all of Alachua County, Florida. It is a stay-at-home order. It closes non-essential businesses and gathering places. It allows essential operations to consider with significant restrictions.
It's a camera battery. Check it out. Oops. So that happened. So my county basically just went into phase 1 of lockdown. Alachua County, Florida is now under a stay-at-home order. So, more time to make videos. Heck yeah. Silver lining. Let's go. If you think I'm slowly losing my mind, you're probably right. Guys, in today's video, we are going to be staying at home and we are going to be doing some technical analysis on Bitcoin. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about how over the last 24 hours or so, Bitcoin has started to bounce right around that one level that we were talking about just a few days ago, the 204 hourly simple moving average. There we go. Got that. First take, almost. As you can see, early yesterday, Bitcoin bounced around that level and rallied relatively quickly. And we've actually managed to rally up to a very important level, that being $6,900, a previous level of resistance that we tested just a few days ago. We are going to be diving into some technical analysis on this, and then we're going to be jumping into some much longer term and more fundamentals at the end portion of this video. Anyway, guys, if you do enjoy today's video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel when you do that. I wouldn't want you to miss any more of our videos. We're going to be at home here for the next couple of months, so there will be plenty to be made. But without much further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. They say there are 3 types of people in this world. People who worry, people who plan, and people who plan to worry. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you that I plan to have quite a bit of fun here over the next 2 to 3 months as I'm locked in my own house by decree of the county. I'm going to be having quite a bit of fun sitting here recording YouTube videos and, like I said in yesterday's video, dancing in the kitchen with my dog. It's going to be great. I'm not going insane. You're going insane. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive on into some Bitcoin technical analysis because the Bitcoin market marches forward and it stops for no man or germ. As you guys will well know, the apocalypse happened about a week and a half ago and Bitcoin fell 50% in the span of 48 hours. From there, though, we've managed to put in a pretty nice bounce here. Albeit we have not returned to the same levels that we were at, and albeit we have not returned there in a significant amount of time, even though we fell very quickly, we have not rallied all the way back up there, even given a week and a half of grace. But when you take into consideration the news, you know, Bitcoin's actually doing pretty well. As I've talked about in other videos, look to what some of the other world markets are doing right now. Gold has bounced 13% in the span of 9 days. Bitcoin started bouncing before gold. The S&P 500 is just doing S&P 500 things, and as to is the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and oil is just starting to attempt to put a bottom in. But during that time, what has happened to Bitcoin? I'll tell you what's happened to Bitcoin. It's bounced 70% on wicks. And if you want to do it without the wicks, Bitcoin has still bounced, based on candle bodies, 37% in the span of the last 11 days. Much farther than most markets that haven't bounced at all. But why Bitcoin? Of all of these markets, why would Bitcoin be the one to bounce here? Well, I'm so glad you asked. There are a few reasons, in my opinion, why Bitcoin has bounced so well here over the last week and a half or so. One of them would be that the majority of the valuation in cryptocurrency didn't actually leave. They panic sold, and they stayed in the market, and they bought up the lower lows, and actually, a lot of people right now are probably in profit because they shorted and they longed. Of course, there have been a lot of people that lost money, but I think a lot of people are actually profiting off of this move. Not to mention, increasing volume to the sell side or the buy side typically is a very bullish thing. The second reason I believe has something to do with the fundamentals of Bitcoin. As you guys know, there is a major round of quantitative easing going on in every single major central bank in the entire world right now. We discussed that in yesterday's video. You can watch that right up there. And when you inject money into the economy, you cause inflation, and when you cause inflation, you devalue currencies, and when you devalue currencies, you have an unhappy populace because all of a sudden they can't afford their Starbucks. To be honest, they couldn't afford it anyway, but now they really can't. I mean, seriously, make coffee at home. I mean, are they going to give you this mug at Starbucks? I don't think so. I can't at my house. Forget Starbucks. Fun fact, I actually stole Taylor from Starbucks. I took their best employee. It was great. Anyway, when you do a round of quantitative easing, it does help to stimulate the economy. This much is known, but it is a short-term band-aid to a much longer-term problem normally, or in this case, a problem related to a crisis. When you shut down the entire global economy, of course, there is going to be a lot of money lost, and injecting and printing money is one way that lawmakers attempt to help fix this. But that can only be done so many times before you eventually cause hyperinflation in your currency. Yesterday, we talked about the Venezuelan bolivar, and I mentioned the German mark. A lot of you guys thought I was talking about the post-war mark. I was talking about the I think it was called the Papier mark in, I'm butchering that, in Weimar, Germany, in between the First and Second World War. I was talking about that mark. That mark hyperinflated. And the reason that that happened is because the central banks and the central governments came in and tried to print money out of thin air to fix an underlying economic or fundamental problem. In Weimar, Germany, for example, the First World War had ended and the Treaty of Versailles levied billions of dollars of debt onto Germany for starting the war, even though the First World War was not necessarily started by Germany. This, along with many other things in the Treaty of Versailles, put their economy into flat-out shambles, and the government at the time tried to institute some quantitative easing, an early form of it, by printing a lot of money, and all of a sudden the money was worth nothing. All of this to bring you to Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is bouncing. I am of the opinion that part of this bounce is happening because Bitcoin fell so quickly. A lot of this bearishness was already kind of pent up and the tension was released in a breakout event. And so Bitcoin fell very quickly. But now that Bitcoin is bouncing, I think part of this bounce, not all of it, a lot of it has to do with the first reason that I mentioned. But a lot of it, I think, has to do with people understanding, hey, a halving's coming up. The stock-to-flow ratio is going to increase. There are a lot of things happening on bullish technical indicators that we don't talk about very much here on the channel that are looking good. And most importantly, the people in the cryptocurrency market specifically, maybe not in the rest of the world because they all have their own thing to worry about right now, but the people in the cryptocurrency market, I think, are putting even more money into Bitcoin than they would have normally because they understand that if some of these fiat currencies that we use on a daily basis hyperinflate, our safe haven is going to be Bitcoin. And this is what I was discussing in yesterday's video. When currencies hyperinflate, Bitcoin becomes a haven. Right now, Bitcoin is looking a lot better than the United States dollar that is having billions and trillions of dollars pumped into it to try and avert the economic fallout of the crisis that we're in. And by the way, I'm not necessarily going to be one of these people that faults the Fed and Congress for using quantitative easing to try and put off or stop entirely a recession of biblical proportions. This would be really bad without what they're doing. So I'm thankful. But at the same time, you also have to understand the underlying fundamental drivers of the US dollar, its value, and currently its hegemony. And it is being threatened by this because of the amount of new dollars that we're putting into circulation and the value thereof going down. So where does this all tie into the technical analysis? Well, guys, I'm going to tell you, everything I just talked about with the fundamentals of Bitcoin, that is a longer-term play. That is not a short-term play. This is not short-term analysis. What we've been looking at over the last 11 days, this bounce, this is a short-term play. This is having to do with how Bitcoin fell nearly 50% in the span of 48 hours, and it needed some kind of bounce and correction. Of course, we were going to see some kind of bounce. Are we going to go lower? Almost certainly, in my opinion. Guys, I think there is a very, very high likelihood that Bitcoin corrects here and goes back down to at least $5,500 where that 200 weekly SMA is. I can show you that right here. As you can see, it's sitting right there. I think it's almost beyond a shadow of a doubt that we go back down there in the next 2 months as the news ramps up. But in keeping with the philosophy here at the Crypto Jeb headquarters in my office, we always want to be looking at the longer term perspective of Bitcoin. We always want to be looking at what is Bitcoin doing a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because if we're around in 5 or 10 years and we invested now, or even better yet, when Bitcoin pulls back down to $3,900 again, if it does that a second time, I'm putting everything in. Where are we going to be in 10 years? That's the question that I'm really concerned about, because Bitcoin crashes, Bitcoin rallies, the global economy goes into bull markets, and the global economy goes into bear markets. These things happen in a year. This will be history. Now, I get it. You're tired of living through a historical event. I am too, quite frankly, but that's what's happening. We need to be focusing on the long term, especially coming into the next few months, as this is going to get more difficult. As you saw at the beginning of this video, my specific county just went into the first phase of a lockdown, and I'll be honest with you guys, I've been following this pretty closely every single day for the last 2 months. I've been following this since most of you guys had seen the memes on Reddit. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I need you guys to be totally aware of that, but the point is is that it is going to get better. These things happen. They come and they go, and hopefully, if we're all smart, we're going to be just fine. Instead of focusing on the bad, I mean, there are plenty of bad things that are happening. People are in danger, economic danger as well as, health. We can't go to church. We can't go to friend groups. We can't, do parties. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can't do right now that we normally can do, and those things are obviously bad. But you have to also understand that there is oftentimes a silver lining that's just as big or even bigger than the negative side effects, and if you focus on that, you will be a much happier and, frankly, more successful person, because even though there are bad things coming along with this, this is an entire socioeconomic, cultural paradigm shift that we are going through right now. And what that means is that we have the opportunity to do things that we may not normally have the opportunity to do. As you're sitting at home and perhaps you've been quarantined, or perhaps you're in self-isolation because you were in contact with someone, or perhaps your business shut down and you're out of a job right now. Whatever it is, now is a time for us to be working on ourselves. Instead of sitting at home and watching Netflix for the next 3 months, how about sit at home and learn how to play that piano back there? How about sit at home and learn how to sing? How about sit at home and start working on that business idea that you've had for the last 3 years? Sit in your house and learn technical analysis. That's a good thing to do with your time. What we're going through right now only has to be a totally bad thing if we decide that it is. So let us decide, instead of it being an absolutely horrible thing that we're going to get worked up over and scared about and upset about, instead of doing that, let's look at this as an opportunity to improve ourselves for the sake of ourselves and for the sake of everyone around us. Because coming out on the other side of this, I know, in my case, that I'm going to be stronger, wiser, more well-prepared for next time, and I'm going to be smarter than I've ever been in my entire life, because I'm going to have months to sit in my house and think. And that's one of the things you need to focus on, is while we have this period of stillness and the world has come to a pause, use that time, because it's very valuable and you might not get this opportunity again. I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm starting working on the new YouTube channel. In fact, the first video for that, a little teaser, will be out tomorrow. I'll call it tomorrow. Guys, happiness and fulfillment and safety and security, these things are not about Subway sandwiches and going to the skate park. They're not, I mean, it's so much more complicated than that. You can lose a lot and still be happy. I remember we were listening to a sermon, and Pastor Mike, he was talking about the Philippines, and he mentioned these 3-story houses over in the Philippines, and they were poorly constructed. They were maybe made out of things that you'd find. I mean, they were not very well made buildings. And the Philippines, are susceptible to typhoons. So when a typhoon came through, all of the Christians in the house, they all had to move up to the 2nd floor of the house and then to the 3rd floor of the house. And the entire time, all of their possessions on the ground floor were being destroyed. Everything they couldn't carry up were being destroyed. They were in mortal danger from rising floodwaters. They were in mortal danger of that flimsy house being destroyed. But they were happy and singing through the entire thing. But I'll tell you one thing that Pastor Mike said is that, one, they were singing gospel music. They're praising God. So, I mean, that's going to help a lot if you guys are Christians. But I think you can also, if you're not a Christian, take something from that, because it's only the end of the world if you think it is. I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I can't go anywhere. So I'm going to be sitting here recording a video every single day for the rest of this news, so that you guys can be kept up to date with what's going on in Bitcoin, and I can continue working on my cinematography skills. I'm really excited for this new channel. Anyway, guys, I've been talking for too long, so I'm going to go get myself another cup of coffee and figure out what I'm doing for the rest of the day, because it's been like 6 months since I've stayed at my house all day. Anyway, though, guys, if you did enjoy today's video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel when you do that, and I would be very appreciative if you did. But anyway, guys, that is going to have to do it for today's video. I do want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, though. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.